So Tubies, now we have left the stage of base priming the miniature, and now we go on to the stage where we actually start to make him a good paint job. And for that instance, we will start to apply a second time the shadow gray, and now we will leave the recesses with the inked shadows. We will leave them behind. We do this to make a clean, even paint job and to be ready for the real highlights. So there I have too much paint on the brush, so I turn it over a paper towel a little bit, and then it's ready to go. So at this stage you can really start to paint exactly, and for that instance try to always paint with the tip of the brush, because that gives you much more control over where the colors need to go than when you blob the whole miniature with too much color. To learn how much color you need to have on the brush, this is also a thing that comes with more experience. I have a tendency to use bigger brushes. For example, this is a Citadel base coat brush, just for the fact that it can hold more paint, and I can paint and paint and paint and paint and paint and not dab into the color again. But that's just personal preferences. Here you can see that the tip of the brush is almost perfect, and I can paint the smallest details with it, even with a base coat brush. Not always the finest brushes are the best. So I will now go on with painting the shadow gray over the miniature, and I'll be back when all this is done. Now that the shadow gray is all set, we will start to highlight. For this instance, I have mixed up a color mix out of astronomical gray and shadow gray, and now I start to highlight the Chaos Warrior, and leave a little bit of the old color behind to create a nice color transition. So as you can see, the color is also highly watered down, because that makes it also much easier to highlight and make a nice color transition. And always try to pull the color into the direction where the light should hit, to make it even brighter there. That's the advantage from watered down colors, because you're pulling the pigments down towards the place where you need them. So after that stage, I will go on with highlighting with also a little bit more of the astronomical grey. I will finish up now the last few steps and I'll be back in a second. Now we will apply the second part of the highlight. And for this Chaos Warrior, that should be enough. Because we don't want to end up with the highlights at white. That would be a little bit too much. And don't worry if the color is a little bit too bright right now. This will change when it dries. Always wet color is a little bit brighter than dry colors. That's also a thing you have to learn by experience. The knowledge about how wet color looks and how dry color looks. So, for the shield that's enough. Now the helmet. As you can see, I try to make uneven lines at the edges from the highlights because that also helps to create a little bit of a transition. Straight lines are much easier to see in a highlight step than rough edges. So, and I think this stage is also done now. I think the color is now good, and now we will start to make battle damage. For that, I will mix now a mixture of black and scorched brown. And then I will paint in scratches and little dots where the damage should be. For example, here. Sometimes bigger, sometimes smaller. Try not to overdo it, just a little bit here and there. That's then enough. So, now we need the highlight color and highlight it even more with white. So, yeah, that's good. And then you need a really nice straight pointy edge of the brush, and then we'll start to apply white lines underneath these little dots and scratches. Add little highlights for the scratches, and that makes them look three-dimensional. I hope you can see them good. that, the armor is done. I will complete now the other scratches and I'll be back in a second. So, now I think it's time to start finishing the rest of the model. For that instance, I start with a cape, and I paint now the main parts of the cape in scab red. And leave the recesses in the darker shade that we have previously applied and shadowed down with the wash. So red is a little tricky color because it doesn't cover 100%, and so you need a little bit more experience to work well with this color, but over time you will learn how to manage to paint it. It's not that hard how it looks. Just paint in straight lines and everything will be fine. So, you see, I leave the recess here in the darker color to create a shadow. To be a good painter, this is much training involved. Many people think that they just have to watch some tutorials and then they are perfect painters, but no, it actually does take years of experience. And it's like everything else you try to master. Training, and again, a little bit more training. If you don't train, you don't get better. So, and now I will highlight the scab red with blood red. Make, for example, a 50-50 mixture, roundabout. Don't block my camera with the paint pots. There I have to clear this little hole there, because there I don't want to have blood red. There you see, also me make mistakes. I'm not perfect. But I know how to fix it. So, this is also quite easy. Just leave a little bit from the old color behind, and then you get a nice transition. So, and I think that's enough for the cape. So, now the only thing left to do is highlight the pelt and the horns. So for the pelt, I will take Bestia Brown. little bit the brush, and then I slightly paint over it with the edge of the brush. I don't really dry brush. It's more like a wet brushing. I just paint the edges. You have to train this also, because there's a little bit knowledge involved how much paint have to be on the brush to create this. So if you have too much paint on the brush, then you will get color in the recesses. If you have too less paint on the brush, then almost nothing will happen. And you just want to have it happen because you want to highlight it. But don't dry brush this, because this will look ugly. Dry brushing makes a very uneven finish, and that's not what we want. We want to have a clean and nice paint job, don't we? So now we apply the second highlight, and for that instance we do a little bit snakebite leather into the pastel brown. So, and then we do it again. Let's slightly. So, don't everywhere, just a little bit on the tips here and there. So, and now for the final highlight, we put a little bit bleached bone into the color. Make it into a nice creamy brown tone. Yeah, that's nice. So, and I think that's it. So now we do the same for the horns. We start with snakebite leather. That was the undercoat, and we will immediately put bleached bone into it to start highlighting it. So just like that. The other side. And sorry for you guys that are disturbed by my breathing. You can hear it so loud because my face is directly next to the camera. I can't stop that, and sorry that I can't stop breathing. But when I do this, I will stop living, and I don't want to stop living. Now a little bit more bleach bone into the color. A little bit higher. So, now for the last highlight, almost pure bleach bone. And there we have nice horns. Ta-da! And he's finished. I will do now make the base and show you the finished product. How to make a base you can watch in several of my other videos. So, be right back. And there we have the finished product. Completely painted Chaos Warrior. And for those of you that haven't noticed it, this color scheme is actually from the Space Wolves. I made this tutorial just for the purpose that you could always adapt color schemes to other models. So, if you like, for example, the color scheme from the Dark Angels, but you don't want to play Space Marines, well, apply it to Chaos Space Marines, or to the Tau, or whatever. You could always pick that what you like, and apply it to whatever you want. So, I hope you like this little tutorial, and we see us, well, in the next tutorial, whenever that will be. See you, your Alexandra.